So we thought we were just coming to, hang out with some horses and have some fun. And we didn't realize that this was going to really change our lives.
You guys are awesome. Had a chance to get a guided tour of TRAK. Whose idea was it to start TRAK?
Well, the idea came to me when I was working as a teacher with adolescents that were in and out of the judicial system.
Okay.
And it came from a couple of different areas. One of them was I saw the connection that they had with animals, because I always had animals in my classroom. But also I noticed that one of the underlying things that all of my students dealt with was a low sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And so I got them started with doing community service work. And so fast forward several years, I started thinking about putting a program where we do community service work and animals together with children. And so I started speaking to Scott about it, and he just added to my ideas. I had the educational, social emotional benefits in mind, and then he pulled together the animal aspect of it. And so, the two of us coming from completely different backgrounds, our experience and knowledge that we had, we put together, and it just kind of flourished into this. And the program is always changing and growing all the time. But it did start with the idea of having youth and adolescents get involved in community service and taking care of animals and building their self-esteem. And then after speaking with a lot of people about it, some of them had started telling me that their own children would benefit from it, and their children weren't challenged and didn't have disadvantages. And so as we talked about it more, Scott kept bringing the piece of the animal interaction and the experiences of taking care of them and the work that they can do on the property, and that sort of putting the cell phone down and getting out and a good day of hard work, and what that does for someone's self-esteem and the skills that they can gain from that. So it was a combination of the two of us just sort of talking about what the possibilities were.
Sure. So Scott, tell me about your background. How are you so good with animals?
Well, basically I was a city boy, born in Scottsdale. They sold the house in Scottsdale, Arizona, moved me to Flora Vista, New Mexico, which is basically in the middle of nowhere, right on the Animas River. They bought a ranch. And my closest neighbor was a race jockey who had turned a horse breeder. So basically every spare minute of time I had, if I wasn't with my parents, I was with Al. And so he basically took me under his wing, taught me, everything he knew, and then some. And then, like I said, we just kind of turned this into a business to where we could hide my wife's obsession of animals. No, not really.
Actually, yes.
Somewhat. But really what this program has been designed to do is to bring families back together, get back to the old ways. We call it our Cradle to Community program. Just because if you start this at a young age, common sense, we all know, is not very common anymore. And the other thing that we really saw was there was a lot of autism, and there's a lot of special needs folks out in the community. And what a better way to build a community than to have people who don't have special needs or disabilities work right alongside with those folks who do. And maybe later on in life, they'll have compassion to hire those folks. They'll see the value that they have.
So is there any limitation on the type of child that can come here?
Nope.
So you've had kids come here of all different abilities, and put them on horses and done it's called equine therapy.
Yes.
They pet the goats and the sheep, and they see the rabbits. And tell me what that's like for a child that's maybe never interacted with an animal before, how that might work for them. What might be their reaction?
Well, I think the big thing is that providing opportunities to people. And, you know, we are wide open to opportunities. We are not just a one type of program. We are open to building a program to meet anybody's needs. And so when you have people who come here who have never touched a pig before, or seen one in real life, or touched a horse or seen a horse or groomed one, or you know, taking care of an animal, it's just amazing what it does for them in terms of their self-esteem and providing those opportunities to gain new skills. We have people who are wheelchair bound who come and groom horses, and the average person in a wheelchair doesn't get that kind of opportunity. And so that's really what it's about, is providing those opportunities for people to have experiences that they may not normally be able to have.
You mentioned something to me earlier that I was struck by, is that, well, one, you've got a whole bunch of different kinds of animals here, but you mentioned that if somebody's afraid of chickens, then they're not going to be hanging out with chickens, but somebody might love the chickens, they'll be hanging out with them. And so so it seems like what you do is you also match the animal with the person, the type of it, and that I found that fascinating. So it's not like everybody's got to enjoy the rabbit, you know.
It's not a one size fits all.
Right. So you've done this now for 15 years.
Yes, sir.
And you started at the worst possible time, but you succeeded. How proud are you?
Very proud.
How proud are you?
Very proud.
My name is Kristen Selby Gonzalez. I'm the mother of a kiddo named Jackson.
Okay.
And he is on the autism spectrum.
Great.
And he's 20 years old, and we're from California.
And you come all the way here from California to Tucson. How come?
Well, you know, I get that question asked a lot. It's about an 8-hour journey for us to come. We come about every 2 months. And there are horse, you know, places near us. We've tried a couple of years past, and nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to this place. When we come here, it's as though like a miracle happens, and I'm not just saying that, every single time. My son starts to flourish when we go home, and we see that for weeks on end. And I think the difference is Cowboy Scotty really believes in these kids and really believes in my son. It made me get a little teary-eyed. But really believes in my son in a way that I've never seen anything before. And because he believes in him, my son's able to do things that other people said he was never capable of doing before. And so I'd rather take him to a place where I can surround him with that positive energy and let him be able to climb that ladder and soar to his greatest potential.
So it's more than the animals.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. And my son was definitely afraid of animals, most animals, before we came here. And it's interesting because now he requests the dogs, and before they had to hide the dogs, and now he's walking in and asking to like pet them and requires them to be part of his sessions. He's, you know, feeding the horse, which when we first took his hand, he was shaking and wasn't able to do it. Now he's running to go grab the granola for the horse. But what we see though is now it gives him building blocks and really these stepping stones to be able to do other things in his life that we couldn't even imagine would be possible. We thought we were just coming to, you know, hang out with some horses and have some fun, and we didn't realize that this was going to really change our lives.
So those skills that he's learned around the animals, that's interesting. They're transferable to other aspects of his life. Wow. So how have you actually seen that at home?
Yeah, so he's becoming more independent. His language skills have really increased, and we see it even here. Each time we come, Cowboy Scotty and I are like, oh my gosh, he said like another new word, or he's saying things that we had never heard him say before. And at home, his, his independent skills, like being able to be more willing to want to help learn to cook, more self-grooming skills, going in the shower, getting dressed, all these things that we've been really working on. Suddenly now we're just, imagine like a flower almost blossoming.
Wow.
That's what it feels like.
So who knew that maybe learning that you could feed a horse could help you cook a dinner at home?
I had no idea. And again, I was really like, okay, we're going to come one time. It's going to be great. We'll kind of make it a little vacation. Never in a million years did I believe we'd be here every 2 months. And now it's the best journey that we take. And I don't mind the drive at all. Like I said, we're in Southern California. There's a lot of horse places over there. And unfortunately, the places that we've been to, at least, maybe not all, but the ones that we've visited, they're great. They have great intention. Like, I really think that they want to help, individuals with autism. However, there's so many boundaries around what they're doing. Everything's kind of like a checklist. And it's not like that here. It's kind of like Jackson gets to be who Jackson is, and we kind of just get to watch him kind of shine and be the star that we knew he was, but at his pace. And there's no checkoff list. It's like, all right, we're just gonna kind of go with Jackson's pace. And by doing that, we're setting him up for success, not failure.
Wow, that's awesome. So, a lot of parents don't know what to do with their kids. They're sometimes they're maybe even afraid to have them go into the community, or the parent themselves might be fearful of their child coming to a program like this. What advice would you give to a parent like that?
I know exactly how they feel, because I also get afraid at different points, right? And I think it's setting the people up wherever you're visiting ahead of time, letting them know, like, hey, my son could have some behavioral issues, or my daughter could have some behavioral issues. What do we have as protocols? How do you guys feel about that? And if they're open to it, which TRAK is like, hey, bring it on. We're good. We got this. I'm like, all right, you guys said we're invited, and we come. And it's amazing to be able to feel that positive energy and being able to surround ourselves, as I said, for people that believe in your kiddos.
Right.
So, I get it. Be afraid at different times, because we've all had those meltdowns, right? They're not tantrums, they're meltdowns. And it's because our kiddos trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make sense to them. But yet, if we put them in a world that says, hey, be who you are. Okay, you might have a little issue for 5 minutes, but then in 5 more minutes, I'm allowed to ask again.
Yeah.
And that's literally what TRAK does. They're like, all right, it's cool. Like, you don't want to do it right now, but we'll try again.
How would you how would you coach a parent to vet a program like this? I mean, because you've been to many. Mm-hmm. You've chosen this one for a reason, and I'm just wondering, what advice would you tell a parent on what to look for a program?
Ask other parents. I was fortunate enough to have a dear friend who used to work here, and she is the one who told me about this place, and she was so passionate about it that I thought, okay, well, I got to try it.
Yeah.
And so, ask other parents, because a lot of parents have already kind of laid the groundwork for you. Right. And you don't have to do all the hard work like we used to have to do. So just follow their lead. And, TRAK has already had many parents way before me that they've been able to help. So all I had to do is come and be invited to the party, and I just keep on coming.
That's awesome. That's great.
I'm Chelsea Mankey. I'm the program director here at TRAK, and I've been involved with the program for 8 years now.
So tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're proudest of as
Oh,
working
yeah.
with people with disabilities? That come here?
Absolutely. So I feel very blessed to be a part of this organization, because it really was me being able to combine my passions of working with children and mental and behavioral health and animals. Always been an animal lover. So I know personally from my own experience the power of horses, just from a very young age, and going through a lot as a preteen, diagnosed with anxiety and depression at a very young age. And I felt like my horse saved my life. So how can we bring that to our community? And there are so many stories I could share, but the difference with TRAK is that we're all inclusive. So we're here for anybody and everybody who needs a place like TRAK. You can't see everybody's disability or something that they're battling or struggling with personally. So you just accept them for who they are when they are on property, and meet them where they're at, which is exactly what the horses and the animals do here, and kind of just grow and develop from there.
A lot of times, at least me personally, when I think of equine therapy, I think of people with developmental disabilities, which is what it is. But you just mentioned something that I have not heard of before, that the horses saved your life, and right now there seems to be a big uptick in children, adolescents, especially with anxiety and depression.
Absolutely.
So tell me about that angle, where that's obviously might be hidden. And so how would working with a horse or a chicken or a pig or whatever, because you got like a bazillion different kind of animals here, how does that help with anxiety and depression?
Absolutely. So I can speak, I think, personally on that, but also just with some of the kids that I've been able to work with and adults that I've been able to work with in our community. They have this calming energy, right? So you're an animal person, you love to be around animals. Did I want to go and sit in an office setting and talk to somebody when I couldn't even tell my own parents or myself what I was feeling or what was wrong? No, that wasn't going to be the fit for me. So, you know, my parents would take me down to the ranch and I'd start taking care of my horse, and I would just be in my own space, my own element, and that horse would meet me, like I said earlier, meet me where I was at. You know, they're able to sense that and pick up on that, and they're there for you. They're not judgmental. There's no verbal communication. So everything is through your senses, you know?
That's interesting. So I did not know that. Do you think the same thing could happen with a dog or
Absolutely.
Or even a cat or something?
Animals in general are very emotional beings.
Yeah.
They're very emotional, and they're very in tune with their emotions. And I know a lot of people that connect. We have clients that come in here, they're not ready to kind of face a 1,000+ pound animal face to face, right? They're a little intimidated by that. So we have bunnies and chickens, which all of a sudden they have this connection to, and they're naming them, or they're, you know, caring for them. And now it's like they have this ownership and responsibility and this sense of self and self-worth and self-esteem. It's a whole process that you get to watch from the beginning to the end. And the best part is even in dealing with animals in the therapeutic setting, we think that everything we do here is therapeutic in one way or another, right? But we've had kids that have come in through the therapy program with very clear goals and a very clear mission, that have graduated and since moved on to horseback riding. And now they're getting a different interaction, but still feeling that therapeutic value. Or they're volunteering with other kids and they're having a sense of community. Their whole world changes here.
Sounds like you got the ideal job.
My name is Rebecca Rodriguez.
Okay, great.
My name is Porter Rodriguez.
So, Porter, you work here.
Yes.
So, what's it like to work here?
Well, it's like to be like it's like a school, and because I'm not a rancher or anything, I live in a city, but in my heart it's like being around with animals. It's kind of like being part of something.
Yeah, and so you work primarily with the horses. What actually do you do?
In the olden days, people break horses, but today we're teaching them to trust us.
Okay, instead of breaking them, you teach them to trust.
Exactly.
Great. So what the heck is a farrier?
Yeah, that's what I asked Scott when he first started talking to me about it. It's just someone that helps to take care of the horse's feet, trim and shoe where necessary. There was a school here in town, and the man, he knew George Good. And again, just like TRAK, the school opened up the door for him to be able to start getting training. You know, one of the things that Scott told me that has always just been an encouragement to me is he didn't care if he had to shoe hundreds and hundreds of horses. He really felt like he could acquire the skill.
So, Yami, why don't you tell me about the importance of being a farrier?
Well, it's to know about how much to take off, and because you can't eagle into your mind when you're doing another horse into another horse.
So what I'm understanding you saying is that you need to understand each horse individually and then trim their hoofs accordingly for the betterment of the horse. What does your future look like? What do you want to do in the year, 5 years from now? You've been here since you were 8, right?
That's when we first started.
8 years old. You are 19?
Mm-hmm.
What's new for you? I mean, my gosh, you've learned how to be a farrier. You've learned to get around animals and
Well, my future is to learn everything I can to learn how to train horses and help people.